Konya nous gagne Dan là, il peut l'expliquer pour nous. Yo type gars sur qui Jean tout matériel nous stocker le pareil pour travail. Vous comprenez? So Dan, what do you got? What's happening around
So
here?
one of the things you want to make sure you do is be organized so you know where all of your building equipment is so you can erect your scaffolding and stuff. So here we have the ladders. These ladders clamp onto the 6-foot walk-through frames here. They stack on top of each other and clamp on. We've got those neatly stacked on pallets so they can be delivered to the area for scaffolding. And then behind that we have the guardrail system, which can go on top of the scaffolding with the post and all the guardrails all neatly stacked in equal amounts on each pallet. Here we have the 6-foot walk-through frames that we use for our scaffolding. On the bottom here, we've built racks that we can store the frames. Now, we have a frame goes in a tube here, a frame goes in a tube here, and a frame goes in a tube here, and then we stack in between, and this kind of keeps the whole package together. So if we need to pick it up and move it onto the scaffolding to build the scaffolding, or we want to load it on trucks to haul it, it makes it easier to haul and strap down on the trucks. And then we come over this way, we have all the cross bracing. The cross bracing is all stacked neatly on pallets, the same. And when it's ready to leave the project, we'll band it all up in steel banding so it doesn't come apart. We'll load it up on the trucks and haul it out of here. So here we got guys erecting scaffolding here this morning. They're erecting the 6-foot frames, handing up the plank and setting them up to do their job. Before these guys started doing that this morning, they do what's called stretch and flex every morning before they start their day. This gets them warmed up, kind of like when you go to a gym to work out. It warms up your muscles in your body, and it decreases the chance of getting injuries from strains and sprains. Once they get done with that, every Monday morning they also do what's called a toolbox talk. It's a safety meeting that they'll have that's written out. The foreman goes over the meeting with the guys. It could be on scaffolding, over fall protection, what height you put the guardrails on, and how to prevent people from falling off the scaffolding during erection of the scaffolding and while they're doing production, stocking materials or laying the block. Once they get done with the stretch and flex and everything and all that and the toolbox talk, then they'll do what's called a pre-task plan or a JHA that we use. They have a little book that they use that describes what are the activities in detail that they're going to perform that day, what are the hazards associated with that, and what are we going to do to protect our men from those hazards, which falls to the personal protective equipment that they use each day, good body positioning, stuff like that around the forklifts when the forklifts are working, and basically setting up the skills so that if they forget what they're supposed to do or part of what's going to happen later in the day, they can go back to that JHA and they can look at it, which is a job hazard analysis book. They can go back and look at that, and it reminds them what they're supposed to be doing, when they're supposed to be doing it, and how to protect themselves from the hazards for that.
Ok tout le monde, n'a parlé sur shuffle parce que nous là et nous capables de gagner quand il y a levé shuffle ça pareil pour mis ça ou capable de gagner photo yo déjà fait et sous yo parle traverser avec bloc et ça parle former une galerie en bas côté élèves yo parle passer les aller à classe là so o capable gagner un pile de gars tout à tout capable de nous gagner machine délivrer tio sayo yo parle utiliser les yo couler béton là dans photo sayo mais tout bagaille besoin pareil tout chapeau besoin pareil avant mon arrivée pour gagner bonne prudence, bonne sécurité, tout le monde monte chapeau là. Vous pouvez yo utiliser chapeau quand yo mettez planche pour yo pas quitter aucun espace quand le monde capable de tomber à terre. Yo commencez toujours avec une plaque, même j'en nous fait à terre, yo toujours utiliser une screwjack. Après ça, yo capable de yo partir au niveau, et tout, ils ont utilisé deux brasses, toujours. Ils peuvent avoir toutes brasses en place, les pays. Ok? Pas qu'on ici nous gagnons l'autre là, mais ils peuvent avoir, ils ont levé le chapeau pareil et dernier bagage. Sur tout chapeau, ils ont passé 6 pieds, ils ont monté dans le deuxième étage. Ils peuvent avoir, ils ont gagné, ils ont un bagage, ils ont relé. Ils ont un bras de sécurité en là. Ils ne sont pas capables de tomber à terre, ils mettent tout le monde en place pour être capable de tout le monde qui en l'air gagne une bonne sécurité là au travail. So, ils montent et avant le monde capable d'arriver sur le chapeau, tout le bagage besoin en place. Dernier bagage, pas de monde qui monte le chapeau sans monter sur une échelle. Comprendre Michel monter beau chapeau là, il est capable de monter là, il n'est pas monter ça, il n'est pas monter ça. Pourquoi ça n'a pas fait ça? Vous comprenez? Pourquoi ça n'a pas fait ça? Parce que ça, c'est pas ouvrir et ça, c'est pas démonter. Vous comprenez? So, s'il est démonté, il gagne une chance de capable de tomber à terre. Ça, c'est raison de ne pas jamais monter sous pression. Très bien. Ok, so parce que nous pas monter sur Brasio, on a utilisé une échelle qui est déjà là. So, mais nous monter, oui, nous aller, nous pas aller sur Brasio. So, les ouais plancho, toujours besoin de passer brasse minimum 6 pouces. Vous pouvez voir, il y a 12 pouces là, chaque bout, mais minimum c'est 6 pouces. Comprendre? Pas moins de passer ça.
So here we have the ladder access to the scaffolding so the men can climb up. Now once the scaffolding is erected, it's got to be inspected to make sure that the scaffolding is all built correctly, that the guardrails, toe boards are in place, that everything in the scaffolding is set right. Now to identify, make it easy for people to know that the scaffolding has been erected correctly and it's safe to get on, we have to tag our scaffolding. So here is the scaffolding tag. We always put it by the entry points. Now this green tag here is dated for 1/17. That's today. That means this scaffolding was inspected this morning before the guys went to work on it. Here, if the tag is out when the scaffolding is not ready, it says danger, do not use the scaffold. So this way the people know it's not safe to just get up there other than during erection and dismantling of the scaffolding. Okay, what we have here is it's called easy scaffolding. And basically whenever you're doing your design setup, you want to set up your spacing with all your towers. You want to make sure that they're on the proper mud sills down on the bottom, and you put screw legs on to adjust it to make it level and plumb. And it comes in sets of 2 with the towers. The tower is tied together with the cross bracing. Once you get your tower set up, you use these cranks here. You got these little places here that a crank goes on, and you'll have a couple of employees working simultaneously cranking up the scaffolding. The scaffolding is all attached together with what we call this bridging here. So you'll have a set of towers, then you'll have a bridge, set of towers and a bridge. And basically the way this works, it's to keep the bricklayer at the optimum level for laying block to make it easier. Less opportunity for straining the back or the low back or the upper back. So it keeps them in the sweet spot of laying about 3 block, and they can crank it up. They can lay 3 more block, they crank it up. It keeps them working between the middle of their chest and their knees, rather than bending all the way down to the floor to lay the first course and then reaching way up here above your shoulders, which is good for shoulder injuries and stuff, to hurt that. So it's a pretty good scaffolding. The guardrail system stays in place. You don't have to tear the guardrail system down like you do on conventional tubular welded frame scaffolding. So the guardrail's in place. If you're going to remove guardrail to load material on, you can wear a harness and use your lanyard and hook it right onto the steps in the back. That way you don't expose yourself to a fall hazard of over 6 feet. The employee's protected from falling by the fall protection.
on parlait sous système Easy Scaffold, petit encore. On connaît système ça capable de monter wow en pile. Nous là, prêt à terre, mais il est capable de monter vers 200 pieds dans le ciel. En l'air. Mais on a un gros plafond côté tout ce que vous voulez faire, vous êtes capable de faire sans problème. Vous êtes capable de voir sur Scaffold ça, pas aucun trou pour monde capable de tomber ou bien mettre des pieds en bas. Ou bien tout guardrail en place pour monde pas capable de passer et tomber à terre. Ou bien un système ça, câble ça, de monter en l'air là, côté les boulonnel sur le système là, vous êtes capable de voir, ça vient en pièces. Chaque 10 pieds, vous êtes capable de voir, il y a une pièce, chapeau, et boulonnel ensemble, dans chaque 10 pieds. Et il est capable de toujours monter avec toute brasse en place là. Encore capable de travailler par derrière là, il y a 3 planches. Vous êtes capable de marcher. Oui, vous avez un pile matériau là, oui. Vous avez un matériau pour demi dans la position ça. Si vous venez là avec moi, vous êtes capable de dire, nous gagnons demi parfait là. Et par monter haut. Et qui j'en nous parle passer stocker en pile ou bien matériau suffit pour être capable de poser demi, pas une seule. Mais avec chapeau ça, nous gagnons bloc rouge, béton, nous gagnons bloc gris là, ou gagnons bloc gris normal, ou gagnons bloc gris avec sèche. Les gains là, pour une différente motif. So, gros chapeau, gros espace, tout le monde capable de travailler à l'aise, même genre Dan Tedino, ils ont monté chapeau en même temps, ou pas besoin ben toi bas, ou bien tirer toi haut pour être capable d'arriver côté opposé bloc.
Okay, what we have here is the 6-foot walk-through frames. And anytime scaffolding is erected, the erection has to be supervised and then inspected by a competent person. So the competent person is the one that will make sure that the scaffolding is erected properly, it's the proper distance from the wall, that it's level, it's plumb, and everything is in place, all the cross bracing. So once the scaffolding is erected, the competent person will come through and they'll start an inspection on the scaffolding. Now they always start, you should start at the ground and work your way up. So in this case here, at the very bottom, we have what's called a mud sill. Now the only reason we're using mud sills on this floor is because we're protecting the floor. If we were on the dirt, it would be keeping the scaffolding from sinking possibly into mud if it rains or whatever, or the leg from going into the mud. The next thing you want to make sure that you have on the scaffolding is you want to make sure you either have a base plate. This is a base plate. This is a screw leg. This is adjustable. So when you're building the scaffolding on the ground rather than on a smooth concrete deck, or perhaps the concrete is sloping so it might be lower on one side than it is the other, you can use the screw leg to make sure that the scaffolding is plumb. The next thing you'll want to look at is you're going to inspect the frames as you're erecting to make sure there's no damage, visible damage to the frames. Then you're going to put your cross bracing in. Make sure the cross bracing is all connected properly, that they're all on the pins, and that the locking mechanism is in place, and so that the cross brace can't slide off of the pin. Then the next thing you want to do is start moving up in your inspection. So here we have the ladder. You want to make sure that the ladder is properly attached to the scaffolding, and that the top of the ladder goes at minimum of 3 feet above the landing that you're going to get off on. As you move on up with your inspection, you want to start looking at your plank. Now here we have a mixture of new plank, and we have a mix with some older plank. So you can look underneath here and you look at the plank and you're looking for visible cracks that you can see daylight through. 18 inches or more, the plank would need to be replaced. this planking here has all been inspected and it's in good enough shape that it can be up there for the guys to work on. Then you move up a little bit higher and we're going to start looking at the guardrail system. So the guardrail system consists of a post. You have the up the top rail, a mid rail, and the guys will come back and put the toe board in place to keep small debris and tools from falling off of the back side of the scaffolding. The guardrail system for masonry is always only on the back of the scaffolding and the sides of the scaffolding, the ends. The front has to be left clear so the bricklayers can actually do their work. Once the scaffolding has been inspected and it meets the standard that we need to protect the men, we always attach a scaffolding tag over here to make sure the guys are aware that it's been inspected. So before the inspection, it has this tag on it. So it says danger, do not use a scaffold or climb it. This way they know it's under construction. The only people that can be on the scaffolding when this tag is in place are guys that are erecting or dismantling scaffolding. Once the scaffolding has been inspected, we put the green tag in it. Now the green tag says that it's okay to use, it's safe to use the scaffolding, it's been inspected. Now on the back side, after the inspection, they put the date on there and then they initial it by the competent person has to put his initials on here saying that he inspected the scaffolding and it's ready for use. Once that is done, they put this and they slide it in here. It covers up the danger part. Now all you see is that the scaffold tag and that it's okay to use. And you want to hang it next to the opening of the the access to the scaffolding. You want to hang it there so people can see it easily that it's ready to go up and down the ladder. So here's an example on the easy scaffolding. One of the labor tenders is raising the scaffolding up. So you can see where he's got to crank the scaffolding, which pulls up and winds up the cable and drags the whole thing. Now he can't lift it all the way up on one end. He has to move back and forth. So he'll move down to the next level.
8 inches.
And he'll crank it up 8 inches at a time. He'll raise up this tower, he'll raise up the tower next to him, and then he can come back and raise this section again another 8 inches. If he raises it too high, what happens is it will pull the plank out from on top of the header support, and the planking and the material on top can collapse. Okay, what we're getting ready to do here, we're using the crane. We're going to have to move some of the hydromobile scaffolding towers in there. So they're lowering the ball down and getting the hooks ready. They're going to hook onto the towers, and when they get it all set up, they're going to lift that tower straight up out of that stair shaft. So we've got the cables hooked on here. We have our guy that, our scaffold erector is climbing down from the towers now, and you'll notice that he has double hooking clamps on there. So he climbs down so far, then he'll unhook, he'll rehook another one. This way he's 100% fall protection while he's climbing up and down the tower to get ready to move it. Okay, so here we have them lifting one of the tower sections. What they did is down below at the bottom of it, they had to unbolt this tower section from the rest of it. So we're hooked onto the crane. They're pulling the tower up out of the stair shaft there. You'll notice on the bottom they've got a tag line on there. That's for control. So once they swing that around to move it to where they want to, they will be able to grab that tag line and control the bottom so it doesn't swing and hit them. So you'll hear now and then the operator is honking his horn, and that's letting people know that they're flying something over the top, over around them. So we try to stay out from underneath of the load that he's moving.